Hello there and welcome to World News Program coming to you live on All 24 News. I'm your host, Karim Zachary, and up next are the headlines. 13 brutal Zionist massacres kill over 124 Palestinians in just 24 hours, with Rafah being hit the hardest. 2 more martyrs reported in a Zionist bombing at Nusayrat camp. A grim scene out there with bodies found scattered across Khan Yunis. That's next. Also coming up, 16 Palestinian children die of hunger. 1,000 more face malnutrition amid Zionist genocide in Gaza. Medical reports say over 1 million cases of infectious diseases plague the Gaza Strip. Also ahead, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas rejects Zionist displacement plans and calls for return of northern Gaza residents. In Algeria, Britain talks on UN membership for Palestine as OIC convenes on the genocide in Gaza. And the Geneva Group pushes for human rights watchdog in Western Sahara as outrage mounts over Morocco's drone strikes. And Algeria demands probe into Sahrawi territories. Stay tuned, we've got all the details right after the break. Hello again and welcome to the details. First off in our topical news, and as you followed in the top stories, in Gaza, the Zionist occupation forces have unleashed 13 new massacres, killing 124 civilians and leaving 210 others wounded in just 24 hours. The Palestinian Ministry of Health revealed that the death toll of the Zionist aggression on the Gaza Strip since the 7th of last October had risen to 30,534 martyrs and 71,920 injured, the majority of them women and children. Thousands remain trapped under rubble, with ambulances and rescue crews blocked by the occupation. And in the latest on the ground, dozens of Palestinian civilians, mostly women and children, were killed in Zionist raids on Rafah homes. Rescue teams work frantically through the night to find survivors trapped under rubble. The full report by Zahra Furjani.
At the early hours of Monday, the true extent of the devastation became painfully clear. Using airstrikes and military vehicles, the Zionist war machine shows no mercy. Homes were reduced to rubble, families torn apart, and numerous lives shattered in an instant. Amidst the trail of destruction and despair, rescue teams and civilians stayed up all night searching for missing people under the rubble.
Four families lived in the house. When the bombing occurred, a group of people left the house, and others are still under the rubble. My cousin, his wife, his daughter, and his son were as well, because of the concrete that came down on them. The house, as you can see, was destroyed totally. There was nothing left of it.
A block of concrete fell on the door and broke the window. The whole roof collapsed. For half an hour, I saw nothing. Later, people came and forced the door to force me evacuate. After that, we found out that the house was destroyed. There were 5 martyrs, and there were also 3 missing people. We are not resistant fighters or anything else.
The death toll from the Monday strikes increased to 13 Palestinians, including 4 women and 4 children. The survivors of the massacre recount how the missiles of the Zionist warplanes decimated their families, leaving behind only scattered remains.
They have no targets other than the children and women. This army is defeated. If it was an organized army, it will not to do this to people this scene. Israel and its leadership and all its heads, may they be deprived of the most precious thing they have in life, like they deprive us.
The Zionist killing machine has reached new heights of cruelty as Rafah becomes their main target, exterminating innocent civilians already ravaged by displacement and hardship. Tightening the grip on all sides of the enclave, the Zionist occupation is forcing the Palestinians to quit their territories, while the latter refuse to be cowed into submission, standing firm in their determination to defend their land, their homes, and their dignity.
On Monday, 11 martyrs were recovered from different areas in Khan Yunis, southern Gaza. The Palestinian news agency stated casualties from an occupation air bombardment in a Zaytun neighborhood south of Gaza. Additionally, at least 2 Palestinians were killed in heavy Zionist bombings at Nusayrat camp, central Gaza. 10-year-old Yazan Al-Kafarna dies of malnutrition in Gaza. His death adds to 16 children lost to malnutrition so far. And with 8 blockades, the health system is crippled, worsening 1 million cases of infectious diseases. The story by Salman Asib.
In the besieged Gaza Strip, the tragic death of Yazan Kafarnah, a 10-year-old Palestinian child, has drawn global attention. Yazan succumbed to starvation and illness, sparking widespread outrage and sorrow across social media platforms. According to his father, Yazan required specific food and nutrients to sustain his life as he battled severe malnutrition, but the family was unable to access the necessary resources.
Before the war, he was healthy. He had access to all the food and medical care he needed. When the war started, everything was cut off. This happened to him from the lack of nutrition and him not having important foods.
Yazan's tragic tale is a single drop in the vast ocean of misery shrouding Gaza, where the landscape is marred by death, devastation, and displacement. Infectious diseases are spreading, unchecked through the densely populated streets, exacerbated by the severe shortage of essential medical supplies.
There is too little food. There is really no clean water available. There is epidemic disease. And there is malnutrition.
It's true Israel has besieged us before the war, but we were living and we were fine and happy. This tent is full of diseases. There is no cover for anything, and there are flies in the tents. We're going to die of diseases. This mix of malnutrition and disease can result in a vicious cycle, with at least 90% of children under the age of 5 in Gaza affected by one or more infectious diseases, according to UNICEF. 70% have suffered from diarrhea, resulting in at least 15 child deaths, according to Gaza's health ministry. In the face of such heartbreaking tragedy, the world cannot afford to turn a blind eye. The suffering of the Palestinian people demands attention and action, raising voices in defiance of injustice until the light of hope shines once more on the embattled Gaza Strip and all Palestinian lands.
The Palestinian Ministry of Health announced on Monday that 13,460 Palestinian children were killed since the onset of the Zionist aggression on the Gaza Strip. The ministry added that the number of martyrs among women had also risen to more than 8,900 women since the 7th of last October. As food supplies dwindle in the north, families are making the trek to Wadi Gaza in search of relief. While still facing a humanitarian crisis, conditions in the south offer a glimmer of hope amidst the struggle for survival. Here's Sofian Kinturi with the story.
Heading south along the coastal road from Gaza, Palestinians are fleeing in search of food and shelter as aid fails to reach the northern regions, devastated by Zionist bombings since October 7. Survivors like Hussein Abu Hassan are among those escaping the dire conditions.
What forced us out of Gaza today is that food is tainted with blood. In Gaza City, aid trickles in, and when it does, it's chaotic scramble. People risk their lives amidst gunfire just to secure a meal, and if the Israelis let aid in happen and don't shoot us, then people are fighting for it.
Last week, witnesses recounted how Zionist troops opened fire on crowd clamoring for aid in Gaza City, leaving over 100 dead. Now families like Hassan's are trekking southwards with what little they can carry, navigating from rubble and along the unforgiving coastline. For Omar Ahmed, the decision to flee was fueled by desperation to feed his daughter, echoing the anguish felt by many Palestinians fell without sustenance.
We're facing hunger like never before. I can't bear to see my child go hungry. I can't give her anything to eat or drink. Where will I find food?
Just like many other Palestinians, Omar feels abandoned by everyone, expressing a father's determination in the face of adversity. He refuses to let his daughter die of hunger.
I will travel the whole world to keep my daughter in my life. She is my only daughter and my whole life.
But amidst the despair, Ahmed and other refugees find comfort in the welcoming embrace of southern Wadi Gaza. As Ahmed and his family reach the south, they're met with nourishment from a group of women. In a crisis-stricken region, these acts of compassion shine as beacons of light in the darkness of war.
Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas reiterated his firm rejection of the displacement of Palestinians from Gaza, the West Bank, or Al-Quds. He emphasized Gaza's integral part in the Palestinian state and denounced any plans to separate it from the West Bank or impose military solutions. Mr. Abbas asserted that security and peace depend on ending the Zionist aggression and occupation. He also thanked the African Union and African nations for their steadfast support of the Palestinian cause. The Palestinian caretaker government emphasized the importance of compelling the Zionist entity to permit the residents of the northern Gaza Strip to return to their homes. Mohammed Shtea, the head of the caretaker government, stated during a meeting in Ramallah that the occupation must be pressured to restore water and electricity connections, which the entity's energy minister disconnected from Gaza.
والعربية التي تعمل ليلا تسمح للمؤسسة يجب إجبار إسرائيل.
Israel must be compelled to restore water and electricity, which the Israeli energy minister separated it from Gaza deliberately. And its interruption was not the result of destruction or malfunction in the equipment and infrastructure. Israel must allow the residents of northern Gaza to return to their home.
كان شمال غزة بالعودة إلى بيوتهم.
Prime Minister Mohammed Shtea urged the world to address Israel's violations of international law by delivering aid to Gaza, halting arms supplies, recognizing it as a rogue state, and holding it accountable, as he put it.
اليوم إسرائيل تتحدى العالم.
Today, Israel brazenly defies the world with its violations of international norms and laws. The international community must confront Israel, ensuring the delivery of humanitarian aid to Gaza against its resistance, halting the supply of weaponry, and branding it as a rogue state, flouting international law, holding it accountable.
Prime Minister Shtea also urged the International Federation of Journalists to support the entry of international reporters into Gaza. He commended Palestinian and Arab media for exposing the region's hardships and emphasized the danger hunger poses amid the occupation's actions.
أطالب مرة أخرى.
I reiterate my call to the International Journalists Union to spearhead a concerted effort enabling global journalists to report on the unfolding events in Gaza. I commend the tireless endeavors of the Palestinian and Arab press, tirelessly shedding light on the atrocities and suffering in Gaza and the West Bank. Israel must permit international institutions to operate across all regions of Gaza, particularly in the north, facilitating aid delivery through the United Nations agencies and those in connection with it.
مؤسسات الأمم المتحدة وتلك الأخرى ذات العلاقة.
Algeria and Britain discussed Palestine's UN accession, supporting a two-state solution for UN resolution. During a phone call, Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf and British counterpart David Cameron spoke on bilateral ties and Gaza's humanitarian crisis. They praised coordination at the Security Council, pledging efforts for a ceasefire and aid delivery. Mr. Attaf invited Cameron for an official visit to bolster cooperation. Today, Algerian Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf attends an extraordinary meeting of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. Council of Foreign Ministers in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, to address the ongoing aggression against Gaza. This aims to boost efforts against Palestinian genocide, reaffirming Algeria's support for Palestine and seeking UN Security Council action. Mr. Attaf will also have bilateral talks with OIC officials and counterparts. In other news, the Geneva Group to support Western Sahara called on the UN to establish an independent human rights monitoring mechanism for the occupied territories. Expressing deep concern over rights violation, they criticized Morocco's denial of access to the High Commissioner for Human Rights for the 9th year in a row.
Rights monitoring and documentation is direct consequence of the refusal of the occupying power. The group welcomes the last decision of the UN Working Group on Arbitrary Detention published in October 2023 and urges Morocco to abide by the UN body's request to immediately release prisoners.
The group condemned the illegal and indiscriminate use of armed drones, citing numerous violations of international humanitarian law. These actions have resulted in civilian deaths and injuries in Western Sahara and neighboring countries.
We again draw the attention of the Council to the numerous breaches of international humanitarian law resulting from the illegal and indiscriminatory use of armed drones east of the Bend, resulting in death and injuries among the civilians from Western Sahara and the neighboring countries.
The Geneva Group for Western Sahara restated the need for all nations to respect the territory's recognized status. They urged against actions undermining the Sahrawi people's rights to self-determination, independence, and sovereignty over their resources.
We call on all states to respect the internationally recognized status of the territory and abstain from getting involved in any actions that would undermine the right of the Sahrawi people to self-determination and independence and their permanent sovereignty over their natural resources.
Algeria's UN representative in Geneva, Rachid Beledhan, urged the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights to send a fact-finding mission to Western Sahara. He voiced concern over human rights violations by Moroccan forces and criticized Morocco's use of its UN presidency to organize visits to the occupied territories.
My delegation remains deeply concerned about systematic human rights violations and breaches of international humanitarian law in the occupied Western Sahara region. We call for vigilant monitoring and documentation of the hardships faced by the Sahrawi people. We urge the High Commissioner to dispatch a fact-finding mission to scrutinize the ground realities in the area and present an exhaustive report to the Council, shedding light on the origin of these violations.
To other news now, Algeria and Qatar discussed military cooperation during the visit of Chief of Staff of the National People's Army, Army General Saeed Shengriha, to Qatar. The talks emphasized President Abdelmajid Tebboun's commitment to strengthening ties with Qatar, acknowledging the high quality of bilateral relations and the strategic partnership between the two nations.
إننا نحرص على أن يكون هذا اللقاء مناسبة متجددة.
We are committed to making this meeting a revitalized opportunity to thoroughly assess the various facets of military cooperation between our two armies. We aim to fortify this collaboration further, buoyed by the steadfast support of the leaders of both nations and their shared dedication to its enhancement and realization of its envisioned objectives.
Algerian Army General Saeed Shengriha reiterated his commitment to enhancing and strengthening military cooperation between Algeria and Qatar.
كما أود أن أبلغكم تحيات أخيكم رئيس
Allow me to convey the warm regards of your esteemed brother, His Excellency Abdelmajid Tebboune, President of the Republic, Supreme Chief of the Armed Forces, and Minister of National Defense. His Excellency holds a deep commitment to fostering a bond of brotherhood and cooperation with our dear ally Qatar, and is dedicated to elevating our bilateral military relations to a pinnacle of excellence.
In Yaoundé, Cameroon, the African Summit on Artificial Intelligence and Media kicked off. Organized by the African Radio and Television Union, the summit saw unanimous agreement on the necessity of adopting a common approach for Africa to AI. Our own Oussama Ayadi went there and brought us the following.
In Yaoundé, the capital of Cameroon, the African Union and UNESCO Summit on Artificial Intelligence and Media has kicked off. This event is part of the African Union's effort to highlight AI's impact and its relevance in the news and media sector.
It can be at once positive and also negative. So positive because we can do a lot of stuff with AI, and I like to talk about augmented intelligence instead of artificial intelligence. And augmented intelligence is artificial intelligence for humans, but it can also generate a lot of negative impacts, new risks, obviously. So we need to think about information and good information now, and we need to consider one big dimension, which is ethics.
The summit has attracted experts from over 70 countries, with about 50 of them representing African nations, demonstrating a strong global interest in integrating AI into media practices.
We are participating in this forum, which deals with the effects of the artificial intelligence on the media. We know that with the apparition of ChatGPT, many journalists discovered that this tool will help them in preparing the products and the content. And when we will go through this activity or using these tools, these AI tools, we will ask the question, what will be the position of the journalist in the future?
These days of discussions and exchanges are expected to foster innovative visions for the future of media. The collaboration between governmental and private institutions aims to establish a unique African and international perspective on artificial intelligence. Running until the 6th of March, this three-day summit aims to strengthen connections among key media players and set the stage for a dynamic new era of African media.
And finally, let's catch up on more stories making headlines around the globe with Islam Said.
Algeria's ambitious Trans-Saharan gas pipeline project is nearing completion as it enters a pivotal phase, with stakeholders signaling readiness to proceed with construction. Energy Minister Mohamed Arqab confirmed significant progress, highlighting the project's advancement towards realization. The OPEC Plus alliance extended oil supply cuts until mid-year in an effort to avoid market oversupply and support prices. This move reaffirms the oil coalition's commitment to its strategy amid volatile market conditions, despite increasing pressures on the alliance. Former U.S. Ambassador to the UN Nikki Haley won the Republican presidential primaries in Washington, D.C., securing 86% of the votes against former President Donald Trump's 22%. Haley emphasized the dysfunction in Washington under Trump's leadership and expressed gratitude for those willing to help save the country. Haiti has declared a state of emergency and imposed a nightly curfew after armed gangs orchestrated a violent prison break, resulting in the escape of thousands of inmates. The curfew, effective until March 6 in the western region, including the capital Port-au-Prince, aims to restore order following the deadly incident.
Well, that's all we have for tonight. Thank you for tuning into our channel. Until next time, take care. Bye-bye for now.